Afghanistan 2002. The Hindu Kush Mountains present a logistical nightmare unmatched in modern military history. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the bell. We cover the stories the history books skip. You don't want to miss what's coming next. The first American units arrive at Bagram Airfield to find a ruined Soviet airstrip. There is no infrastructure, there is only broken concrete, unexploded ordnance, and a perimeter secured by concertina wire. The troops survive entirely on meals ready to eat. They eat these dense, chemically preserved rations out of brown plastic bags 3 times a day. The human digestive system is not designed to process combat rations indefinitely. Constipation and menu fatigue become immediate, debilitating operational liabilities. A soldier who cannot process food efficiently rapidly loses combat effectiveness. The Department of Defense understands that relying solely on MREs is an unsustainable strategy for a long-term occupation. To solve this, the military activates the Logistics Civil Augmentation Program. They call it LOGCAP 3. The defense contractor KBR is tasked with building massive dining facilities across the major hubs. The military refers to these dining halls as DFACs. The transformation of Bagram Airfield begins almost immediately. It shifts from a dusty tent city to a massive industrial food processing center, but Afghanistan is not a unified flat battlefield. It is a fractured landscape of extreme elevation and isolated hostile valleys. While Bagram and Kandahar Airfield receive contractor-run kitchens, the combat infantry pushes east into the mountains. They push into Kunar, Paktika, and Nuristan provinces. They establish forward operating bases and smaller combat outposts. These FOBs and COPs are deliberately placed in the most rugged, inaccessible terrain on the planet. Places like FOB Bostick and COP Keating sit at the bottom of steep river valleys, completely surrounded by high ground. The roads leading to these outposts are either non-existent or heavily seeded with improvised explosive devices. Ground convoys are slow, highly vulnerable, and mathematically inefficient. Resupply for these remote outposts relies entirely on Army aviation. The CH47 Chinook helicopter becomes the only viable logistical lifeline. A CH47 is a heavy-lift workhorse. At sea level, it can carry over 20,000 pounds of internal cargo. But in the thin, cold mountain air of the Hindu Kush, the aerodynamic lift decreases drastically. The payload capacity drops. Every flight becomes a strict calculation of weight versus fuel. A remote outpost requires thousands of pounds of food, water, and ammunition every single week. When winter weather or heavy enemy anti-aircraft fire grounds the helicopters, the supply line instantly vanishes. Troops immediately ration their remaining food, dropping down to 1 MRE a day. They stretch their calories, waiting for the distinct thumping sound of twin rotors echoing down the valley. When the Chinooks do break through the weather, they deliver Unitized Group Rations. The military calls them UGRs. These are heavy cardboard boxes containing 50 pre-cooked meals sealed in thick, multi-layered polymer foil. To turn these cold, heavy bags into morale, the Army relies on dedicated culinary specialists. The military occupational specialty is 92G. These are the men and women who volunteer to leave the massive, safe contractor bases to work in the dirt. At a remote FOB, a 92G works a brutal 16-hour shift. They do not have the luxury of commercial ovens or civilian dishwashers. They rely on the containerized kitchen or the smaller mobile kitchen trailer. Their primary heat source is the modern burner unit. The MBU runs exclusively on JP-8 aviation kerosene. This is the exact same highly refined fuel used by the helicopters flying overhead. The single fuel concept simplifies the supply chain, but it complicates the cooking process. At 6,000 to 9,000 feet of elevation, atmospheric physics actively works against the culinary specialists. Combustion requires a steady mixture of fuel and oxygen. The air in Nuristan is incredibly thin. The air compressors inside the MBUs struggle to pull enough oxygen to properly atomize the dense JP-8 liquid. The burners misfire violently. They sputter and stall. Instead of producing a clean, intense blue flame, they produce thick, black, toxic smoke. The cooks must manually adjust the intake valves constantly, kneeling in the dirt. They breathe in the sharp, acrid fumes of unburned aviation fuel for 16 hours a day. The extreme altitude also changes the fundamental thermodynamics of cooking. At sea level, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. At 8,000 feet, atmospheric pressure drops and water boils at roughly 197 degrees. This physical reality alters every single preparation timeline. Dropping a massive 10-pound foil pouch of UGR beef stew into a vat of boiling water takes significantly longer to heat through. The lower boiling point means the heat transfer is less efficient. The 92G cooks must use digital probe thermometers obsessively to check the core temperature of the food. If the meat does not reach 165 degrees, the risk of foodborne illness skyrockets. A gastrointestinal outbreak at a 20-man combat outpost is a tactical disaster. If half the platoon is incapacitated by dysentery, the perimeter security collapses entirely. The enemy monitors the operational tempo, and any weakness invites an immediate attack. The cooks standing over the jet fuel burners are the primary defense against this unseen biological threat. Sourcing clean water is an equally massive logistical hurdle. You cannot fly in enough plastic water bottles to sustain a remote fob indefinitely. The lift capacity is too valuable to waste entirely on water. The military relies on local sources, rivers, mountain streams, or deep-drilled wells. This local water is inherently dangerous, carrying heavy metals, agricultural runoff, and deadly bacteria. Engineers deploy the reverse osmosis water purification unit. The ROPU uses high-pressure pumps to force contaminated water through microscopic, semi-permeable membranes. The process is loud, slow, and mechanically intensive. The heavy silt from the Kunar River clogs the ROPU filters rapidly, requiring constant maintenance. Once purified, the water is pumped into massive rubber-holding bladders known as water buffaloes. Preventative medicine specialists treat this bulk water with heavy doses of calcium hypochlorite. The resulting water is safe, but it tastes intensely like chemical bleach. To make it drinkable, soldiers mix in artificially flavored sports drink powders salvaged from their MRE accessory packets. For smaller patrols operating outside the wire for days, carrying bulk water is impossible. They rely on heavy canvas lister bags hung from trees or individual iodine purification tablets. The tablets turn the glacial stream water a murky brown. The taste of iodine-treated water is bitter, chemical, and universally despised, but it prevents crippling intestinal parasites. Maintaining sanitation inside the field kitchen introduces a completely different set of physical challenges, especially during the brutal Afghan winter. In Paktika province, nighttime temperatures easily plunge far below zero. The 92G cooks must maintain strict field sanitation protocols regardless of the weather. This dictates using the standard 3-sink method outside in the freezing wind. Sink 1 contains a hot soapy wash, Sink 2 holds a clear hot rinse, Sink 3 contains a boiling chemical sanitizing dip. Each heavy plastic sink holds 30 gallons of water heated continuously by an MBU burner placed directly underneath, but the fuel supply is strictly rationed. When the burners are turned off at night to conserve JP8, the greywater instantly freezes solid. The sinks become massive, immovable blocks of ice. The cooks have to use heavy iron pickaxes and entrenching tools to break the ice out of the plastic sinks the next morning. Disposing of this dirty water requires digging deep soakage pits into the frozen rock-hard earth. It is exhausting, back-breaking manual labor performed entirely in the dark long before the first soldier wakes up for breakfast. The human cost of an Afghan deployment is measured directly in calories and physical fatigue. An infantryman patrolling the steep mountain ridges of the Hindu Kush carries upwards of 80 pounds of weapons, armor, and ammunition. They climb thousands of vertical feet in sub-zero temperatures, sinking deep into the snow. The human body attempts to generate heat to survive this extreme exposure. This process of thermogenesis burns a massive amount of metabolic energy. A soldier on a mountain combat patrol easily burns over 5,000 calories a day. The standard issue 3 meals are mathematically insufficient to sustain this output. Soldiers constantly graze on high-calorie first-strike rations to prevent sudden physical collapse. They spend days outside the wire, sleeping in freezing fighting positions. They eat frozen protein bars and caffeinated applesauce out of foil tubes. When they finally walk back through the HESCO barriers of their combat outpost, their physical and psychological state is incredibly brittle. This is the exact moment the massive logistical effort justifies its staggering cost. The 92G has a hot meal waiting. It might just be UGR scrambled eggs and dehydrated hash browns reconstituted with bleached water. But to a 22-year-old infantryman who has not eaten anything warm in 11 days, it is everything. The hot food hits their empty stomach and triggers an immediate physiological response. The core body temperature slowly rises. The adrenaline crash begins, allowing the nervous system to finally stand down. The psychological weight of the 9-month deployment lifts, even if only for 20 minutes. The simple act of holding a warm paper plate is a direct, tangible connection to civilization. The menu rotation is strictly dictated by the frequency of the CH47 supply flights. Some items are universally prized and heavily rationed. Fresh fruit is the ultimate unattainable luxury at a remote outpost. An apple or an orange shipped from Dubai, flown to Bagram and dropped by a Chinook is worth its weight in gold. When fresh fruit arrives, it disappears from the serving line in minutes. Hot sauce becomes the universal baseline currency among the infantry. Cases of Texas Pete and Tabasco are hoarded and traded. Soldiers carry small bottles in their body armor pouches to mask the repetitive, heavily processed taste of the UGRs. At the larger forward operating bases, the civilian contractors establish a rigid, predictable routine. Taco Tuesday becomes a permanent institution. It provides a reliable metric of time passing in an environment where every day blends into a monotonous cycle of patrols. The predictability of the menu is a deliberate psychological tool used to maintain order and morale. But the extreme contrast between the contractor megabases and the isolated COPs creates intense cultural friction. By 2010, during the height of the troop surge, Bagram Airfield houses tens of thousands of military and civilian personnel. The KBR-run dining facilities are sprawling, hard-structured buildings with heavy air conditioning. They feature massive, unlimited salad bars. They have operational soft-serve ice cream machines. They host surf and turf nights on Fridays, serving grilled steaks and imported lobster tails to staff officers and mechanics. The cost per meal at Bagram is a fraction of the cost at a remote outpost. This is due to the sheer volume of personnel and the safety of the established ground supply routes. A single meal dropped by helicopter to Keating costs the American taxpayer hundreds of dollars. The calculation includes the price of aviation fuel, helicopter maintenance, and the extreme tactical risk to the flight crews. When a frontline infantryman rotates back to Bagram from the Kunar Valley, the cultural divide within the military becomes violently apparent. The infantryman has spent 6 months burning their own solid waste in 55-gallon drums. They have eaten MREs until their gums bled from lack of fresh nutrients. The sight of a fully stocked, civilian-style buffet in the middle of a war zone is jarring and surreal. They watch logistics clerks complain about the ice cream machine being broken while their platoon mates are starving on a mountain. This disparity breeds a quiet, lasting resentment between the combat arms and the rear echelon support structure. Despite the friction, the logistics network supporting Operation Enduring Freedom required a massive, continuous expenditure of national will. It demanded the absolute physical endurance of the truck drivers, the helicopter pilots, and the 92G Culinary Specialists. They fought the altitude, the freezing weather, and the malfunctioning JP-8 burners. It proved that the United States military could project a functional high-calorie supply chain into the most remote, hostile mountain ranges on the planet. The quartermasters and the cooks built a lifeline of hot food that sustained the infantry through the darkest, coldest nights of the war. They did not fire the rifles, but they provided the exact biological fuel required to pull the trigger. If this story gave you a new respect for the men behind the serving line, hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds and it helps more people find this channel. Drop a comment below. Did you serve? Do you remember your first hot meal after days in the field? Tell us. And share this video with someone who wore the uniform. They'll know exactly what this story means.